Hey there, everyone. It's Craig, aka Poopy with O3 Drop. I wanted to take a little time and go over some of the hunted spoilers because I know we haven't done that on the channel yet. And I want to just kind of see what stands out as interesting or good. And we're going to go over these and maybe we'll talk a little bit about what we might be building in the hunted. So, first off, we have Arachne Marionette. And so it looks like if your attacks have stealth and they're attacking a marked hero, they get +1, and when it hits, it gets go again. Okay, that's interesting. And then, of course, they can transform, and each time they transform, they have a sort of base templating that's like once per turn attack reaction. You discard an assassin card, and it gets +3. Okay, and then it has some effect like it could give it the ability to banish a card from hand. So these are really interesting. I think there's going to be a lot that we can play with here. I like Arachne Redback is really cool. If it has stealth, it gets go again. Okay, so I like that. I like that a lot. And then I know one thing that people talk about a lot is like Fang and how important Fang's weapon is going to be to the hero. And so Fang's weapon is really interesting. It's Obsidian Fire Vein, which is a really cool name. So it says once per turn attack. If you've played a Draconic card, this Chain Link, this attack gets +1 and go again. And so what a lot of people are thinking is that you're going to probably like break a fealty token to make your next attack reaction Draconic, and then you're going to play an attack reaction. So like that's probably like the play pattern we see with that. And then Syndra, of course, like people have been saying this is like the Flick Knives hero. So you're going to attack with your kunai. It's going to have go again, and you're going to want to flick it as an attack reaction. Wait a minute. Power greater than its base. Go again. Attack reaction. Power greater than its base. Go again. Attack reaction. Power greater than its base. Go again. Attack reaction. Oh my god. It's time. It's time. It's finally time. We're gonna talk about everybody's favorite good boy, Riptide. Okay, here we are with the Riptide deck tech. Now, I want to say really quick that this video was originally intended to be a budget to busted video, but I don't think Riptide is great to start out a budget on, and there's many ways you can build Riptide. I am not saying that this is the best way to build Riptide, but I do think that a trapped-based Riptide is really strong if you want to target what we are expecting the marked heroes to play like based off of their weapons and their abilities. So going into that, I want to right away talk about Barbed Castaways. Barbed Castaways is for an aim counter build, and you might find that Dreadbore is a better choice for you. That's fine. I just really enjoy playing with Barbed Castaways. I like having a resource sink. I like the benefits that aim counters often give us. So let's go into the deck with the understanding that this is not a necessary card for you to run. You can change out the arrows if you're looking for just more value that you can get off of Dreadbore. That would make sense too. Either way, I think that it's a good idea that we start off with New Horizons in the headpiece. This gives us the ability to have an extra card in our arsenal if we have a face-up card in our arsenal, face-up arrow. And let's double-check on Dreadbore and make sure that fulfills that requirement. You may put an arrow from your hand face-up into an empty arsenal. If you do this, you'll lose the benefit of getting +1 until the end of the turn, but there are some situations in which you might want to do this. so that you can get an additional card into your arsenal if you don't have another play other than just setting up. And then, of course, if that doesn't sound good to you, you can always run Skullbone Crosswrap. I think if neither of those sound appealing to you, definitely look into Crown of Providence or Balance of Justice. There's plenty of good headpieces that you could be running. But as we are an aim counter build, as we do have the ability to flip up cards in our arsenal fairly easily, I started with New Horizon, Quiver of Abyssal Depths. Let's move on. It's the Quiver. However, I did want to say that we have the new Enchanted Quiver in this list. Arcane matchups are not going to be our favorite in this deck, even though we are running a fair amount of blues for a ranger. This is definitely going to come in handy in those matchups, more so than the Quiver of Abyssal Depths, I would imagine. Sharpshooters allows us to block with it and put a card into our arsenal with an arrow. Snapdragon Scalers, you're familiar with it, I hope. And Trench of Sunken Treasure. Trench of Sunken Treasure is a great, great chest piece that has Blade Break, Arcane Barrier 1, and once per turn as an instant, you may put a face down card in your arsenal on the bottom of your deck to gain a resource. So right away, I just want to point out, maybe a little bit tricky getting used to Riptide. The differences between when you can activate your Trench and when New Horizon is active. Sometimes, it takes a minute to just get the feel of, okay, I can't do this action because my arsenal is face up, face down. Real simple once you get the hang of it. But when you get started, it can be a little awkward. So I'm going to start actually in our inventory because, as I mentioned, this is a trap list. I am running all 9 of our red common traps from Outsiders. So Inertia, Frailty, and Blood Rot. I think these are great traps. I think they do things that are valuable in any matchup. Whereas things like Boulder Trap, Tar Pit Trap, and Pendulum Trap might be a little bit more circumstantial. Boulder Trap is the one that gives a -1 counter on equipment when if the attacking hero has greater power than its base, and Tar Pit Trap negates on hits. These are both really good. However, I'm thinking about the meta and I'm saying to myself, well, Zen doesn't really have that many on hits. We don't know what Syndra's on hits will be like, and we don't know what Fang is going to have in equipment. It's safe to say this is going to be worth running. If you wanted to swap these out a bit, totally makes sense. Take one out in one area, put another in the other. But in our main board, we have our 3 legendary traps. We're always going to have those. They're blue. They're very good. They might not always be useful for a particular matchup, but they will always be blue defense reactions, and those are quite good. Plus, if you're finding that you can't get value out of it, just use your Trench to get it away. I'm sure later on another turn, you will find value out of it. Now, this list, if we can zoom out a little, has a lot of 2 and 1-ofs, and it's a bit awkward. That's because this is my personal list, right? Ordinarily, if I'm making a list that I'm going to put online, I try and keep it to as many 3-ofs as possible, but this is what I'm finding success with. This is what I enjoy playing. Tweaked just a bit to be for the upcoming Hunted meta. Maybe not meta, as I imagine Mistveil will still be very prominent, but those upcoming heroes. So, first of all, we have Battering Bolt. This is going to be a very strong card against Fang and against Arachne, most likely, as those are heroes that want to run attack reactions. This is also going to be really great against heroes like Aurora. If you're worried about Aurora at all, I would maybe add a 3rd here. Why do I not have a 3rd in the list? I don't own a 3rd. I don't want to go buy one right now. So that's why. Very, very good card, making your opponent both discard cards and lose life. You are always trading at least 2 cards on Battering Bolt, or they're just taking 6 and they can keep a full hand and they feel comfortable with that. In that case, great, they took 6. Let's set up some traps and move on. We have Drill Shot, which is going to have Piercing 1. It will also give -1 counters to equipment on hit. I really like this card for warriors. I like it a lot for heroes like Jarl, if Jarl becomes a meta hero. So this is great, but what I really love about this card is that it's a 0-cost arrow that attacks for a breakpoint. You're going to have to learn in this list when it is time to just take cards from your opponent's hands, when it's time to pump up a card and send a giant arrow, and learning when to block out versus to save a couple cards is going to be key in this list. And I'm not talking about Key Unleashed. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't. But I really enjoy that card. Endless Arrow. This is an interesting one. Why not 3 Endless Arrows? Well, frankly, Riptide doesn't play Endless Arrow the way that Azalea does, right? Endless Arrow goes back to our hand. We put it into our arsenal. Hooray, we've dodged having to reload, but Riptide's hero text already takes care of that for us. So I'm only putting 2 in here because it is still a powerful on hit. It's still great to get that card back. But if we do have an extra card, like say a trap, we don't necessarily need this to hit. We can send this with 1 card in hand, and if our opponent overthinks it and gives us 2 cards, we just slot that trap in the arsenal and move on. So that's great. Another great way of reloading off of Riptide is through Enlightened Strike, choosing the Go Again mode, or either of the other modes, if you have snaps activated, is a great way to put one of your cards into your arsenal. So you'll find that this is probably the most likely time for you to use snaps. It is also just, in many cases, a nice 2-card 7 that we don't have to have an arrow loaded for. So sometimes you have to play around those tricky sequences of just, I've got to play a card to get the arrow in my arsenal, and then I have to fire it, but do I have the resources? This is just going to be a nice way to always guarantee if we have 2 cards, we can send 7. Fletcher Redtail is a really cool pump that is maybe the one that you cut if you're looking to cut a card. The reason I like this so much is that it pairs really well with some other cards that we'll see later. It also it's the only pump in our deck that gives +4. It also says if it has an aim counter, red cards get -1 while defending it. I can't whistle too well. All right, maybe I'll edit a whistle in. No, I won't. If you've watched enough of this channel, you know by now that if I say I'm going to edit something in, I'm not going to end up doing it. Okay, so really good, and it plays with some other cards really well. We also do run 11 blues, which is plenty to have the ability to often pitch for our Barbed Castaway and our Fletcher Redtail and send something like an Infecting Shot. Hey, that's 3 resources right there. So you'd pitch for the Fletcher Redtail, loading the Infecting Shot, pitch for Barbed Castaway, send the Infecting Shot. What, that is a 3 card, let's see, 4, 5, 10 with -1s to all of their reds and an on hit of a Blood Rot. All right. I won't try any more whistling, but yeah, that's a great play line. I really enjoy that. I do want to make sure that we are preparing for warriors having a play pattern where they still require some setup actions. So this is a great way of negating what they are able to really set up. In the non-attack action phase, this isn't going to work for weapons though. So where this really comes into handy is going to be against Viscerai. And I think Viscerai is going to be pretty good. However, don't tech too heavily into Viscerai. It's already a cursed matchup for you. Just use this as a 0 for 4, right? Nice 0 for 4. Maybe you can take out, I don't know what hero is doing multiple non-attacks and attacks right now. you can help negate some of that. Just make one of the cards in their hand useless, and you've got additional value, right? So again, a 0 for 4, some ability to control things. Oh, this is great against Rangers, right? Azalea wants to pump the living hell out of a red in the ledger. Just say, yeah, you could pump some of the hell out of it, but not all of it, right? Infecting shot we talked about a little. Blood rot pox and or I should say lace with blood rot and lace with frailty. These are also great pumps that add the on hits. Now, you'll notice that I don't have inertia in here, and that's because I think that these are going to be the ones that we value most highly, in that these heroes in the hunted are all pretty weapons based. And most of them are going to be pretty redline. So Blood Rot Pox against a redline deck, typically a nice 2 damage at the end of their turn. We also want to make sure we are adding additional damage, because if we just tried to do damage out of the arrows that we have, let's say no traps, no on hits, I don't really know if we're presenting enough damage there. So adding additional damage in things like infecting shot, lace with blood rot, searing shot, those are the kind of things that I really think make this list work even better. Moving on to Merkmile Grapnel. I don't know if you've heard of this hero. Her name's Enigma, but she likes to prevent damage. Merkmile Grapple says no preventing damage. So we're forcing them to block. In that matchup, please bring your Dreadbore. Please bring your Dreadbore and your Merkmires. If you want to add another Merkmire because you've got a bunch of Enigmas in your area, go ahead and do that. Again, it's a 0 cost arrow, so we like that. And I do think that Enigma might struggle against Syndra, is what I'm hearing. That's what my little birdies are telling me, is that Enigma might have some trouble against Syndra, and so let's hope that she falls off a little. Now, this is my favorite card in a trap list. Second favorite. We'll get into the favorite later. So, this one says, if it has an aim counter, it gets +1 and dominate. That's why we're an aim counter build. That's why we're on Barbed Castaway, because this card rocks, and we want to make sure it always is a 7 dominate for 2. Well, sometimes it's 7 dominate for 3 because you got to pay for it for the aim counter, but still, this is a great way to close out games in multiple ways. We give it dominate, we pump it up, we send it for 13, 14 with several on hits. One of them being, when it hits, you may banish 3 traps from your graveyard. If you do, choose one at random and put it into your arsenal. Okay, let's be clear. If you don't have 3 traps in your graveyard, that doesn't work. You have to have 3. It's not up to 3. You have to have 3. So, luckily, we're always running, what did I say, 6? Always running 6 traps. So, we won't have to worry about that too much, but it will be something early game that you have to consider. Also, this is your closer. This is a great closer. You can get it back with Codex of Frailty, but if you don't have a good play and you're thinking about just sending a murky water for 6, sink the murky water from your arsenal. If the card in your hand is a 0 cost arrow, maybe Barb Castaway it in there and then send it. But we want these for late game. We want these to close out a game. So save them when you can. Premeditate. Now, you probably know what Premeditate does. Next attack from your arsenal gets +3, and if it hits, you make a Ponder token. If you didn't know, now you know. Release the tension. This is another great example of a card that you might say, well, Poopy, why is there only one of these in the list? And the answer is, I only found one that's in my house. I actually had to buy Everfest just to try my luck at getting these. Last pack magic, I got one. So why don't I run more Release the Tension? I don't have more Release the Tension. I don't have that much tension. I'm not stressed. So, this is a great card. It's Pump that says defense reactions can't be played from Arsenal this chain link. This in combination with Dreadbore is just no defense reactions. As God intended, right? As God intended. Ban Sink Below. That's what this card does. With Dreadbore, this just bans Sink Below, which we love. Now, Remorseless is another 1-cost arrow with an awesome on hit. However, I want to just say, if you want to get that first mode, you'll have to use the lesser used Barbed Castaway mode, just putting it face up in Arsenal. You can't Riptide and then flip this up with an aim counter and then send it. So any additional, if you wanted to play this with your Fletcher Redtail, you're gonna need some other tricky ways of getting the aim counter on there. Because even if you use your, actually, let's double check. No, your arm piece will do it. You can use your arm piece to get it in there, in your arsenal with an aim counter face up. But this is another great way of saying ban Sink Below is putting this face up in your arsenal and running Dreadbore. And then, of course, the on hit, every time they play an action card, they lose a life. So that's going to be great. Probably into Syndra more than any other hero in the Hunted. Definitely into Syndra more than the others that are more reaction based. Searing Shot, 0 cost 5 damage if it hits. Great. Seek and Destroy. This is where we're going to start getting into some of the more like control ways this deck plays. This is going to give it +3 at the beginning of their end phase. They destroy all cards in their hand and arsenal. Simple. Stone Rain. I love Stone Rain. Stone Rain may be my card of 2024. Now that I'm thinking about it. I love this card so much. 0 cost, 4 attack. If it has a name counter, it gets Dominate, and it essentially intimidates a card out of your opponent's hand until their next end phase. It's so good. This is so good. I love this card so much. It's a great way of adding Dominate to a Riptide deck. It's a great way of, stripping cards from their hands with a very, very low commitment of just give it a name counter. So I love that. Withering Shot, I think every hero is going to be a weapons-based hero in the Hunted. So we definitely want more ways of giving Frailty. Right now we see only 2. I thought I had maybe a little more. But 2, we go to 5 here. We got 5 Frailty token generators right now. Each hero puts an attack action card from the graveyard face down to the arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card, create a ponder. They create a Frailty. You know what it is. You love it. You spent your graduation money on it. It's Codex of Frailty. Line it up. I know I said Stone Rain was my favorite card of 2024, potentially, but Line It Up is up there. This is so, so good in an aim counter Riptide deck. You pay 1 resource. If you wanted to give something an aim counter, you were already going to do that with Barbed Castaway, except now you pay the resource, you play this in response to this. Riptide triggers, you throw something in your arsenal, it flips up with an aim counter and gets +3. This is an easy way of sending 10 damage with Murky Water, right? 10 Dominate off a blue pitch and 2 cards. So we have our legendary traps. Buzzsaw Trap is going to be our attack greater than its base. It's going to get rid of any buffs on that chain link. Collapsing Trap is going to be our go again one. We're going to make the opposing hero discard cards and draw that many -1. And Spike Pit Trap. Okay, Spike Pit Trap, not always the most relevant one, but I really wanted to build this list in particular because of the amount of reactions I think are going to be played in this next meta. And so this is our reaction one. It says if they've activated a reaction, this chain link, put the top card of their deck into their graveyard, then they lose X life, where X is the number of cards in their graveyard with that name. I mean, guys, every assassin or every Arachne is discarding cards constantly. They're going to be discarding you know, cards that they don't want to use. We don't know what those lists look like, but let's say they run 9 of a card that is just like generally good. Like you always want like just the meat and potatoes of the deck. We have a chance of hitting for 8 with the 9 on the ping. It's not going to happen, but it's a dream worth playing Riptide for. We also have Intoxicating Shot as a way of getting our traps to trigger, as well as just being a 0 cost 4. Could definitely see you taking this out for some frailty. What's this? The Withering Shots. If you want some blue Withering Shots, I find that I wanted more 0 cost attacks. 0 cost 4 is great. And the ability to trigger our traps in a trap build, fantastic. Then this is my favorite card in the list. Oh man, I'm all over the place with my favorite card. I love Stone Rain, Line It Up, Murky Water, and Plan for the Worst. Those are all equally my favorite cards. This says look at target heroes' hand and arsenal. At the beginning of their next end phase, they discard all cards in their hand and destroy all cards in their arsenal. It's already like a seek and destroy effect, but also search your deck for up to 3 traps. You can pick one. You can choose one trap. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle 2 of those cards back from your hand into your deck. I take it back. Don't pick just one. That doesn't make any sense. You'd have to shuffle 2 cards from your hand into your deck. Don't do that. Always pick 3. But this is a great way of just kind of getting a read on your opponent's next turn and making them question whether or not they want to trigger into a trap that they have some knowledge of. This is a great card. This is one of the best designed cards in 2024. I know I love the other cards, but this is such good design, right? Now, we talked about the traps in here. Let's talk about the traps not in here. Pendulum Trap. Why don't we run Pendulum Trap? Well, I think that historically, assassins and warriors are pretty good at fatiguing heroes. Maybe this new Arachne shreds through enough cards that that's not the case, and maybe they're not taking cards off the top of your deck as much. And maybe Pendulum Trap turns out to be really good. But that is another reaction-based trap, and as I do think there are going to be a lot of reactions in the next meta, there's always going to be more Go Again. There's always going to be more power greater than its base. I mean, if there's not, that'd be pretty crazy because that's what reactions do, right? So I think it's fair to say that reactions will always be the least common. I do want to run through Blood Rot though, because kind of the premise of the video. However, we're missing Pendulum Trap. We are missing Pitfall Trap, which is going to deal 2 additional damage if they don't pay a resource. So definitely good to consider Pitfall Trap. If you find that Blood Rot Trap isn't as valuable as you thought it was, probably Pitfall. Like if people are on Syndra and Fang more than they are on Arachne, I'd say Pitfall over Blood Rot. But Pitfall has the pitfall of having to be played from Arsenal. Rockslide Trap is not in here. Let's not even think about Rockslide Trap. We have that new trap that's coming out that triggers off Go Again. It lets you flip a card from your arsenal face up and play that as an instant if it's a non-attack action. So we can, get our Plan for the Worst to trigger. We can get a Codex of Frailty to trigger. But none of the other cards add any value from that. And so I would rather just have the ability to potentially turn off Go Again. That seems more useful to me. And of course, we have Bullseye Bracers and Skullbone Cross Wraps just to round out AB3. Now, I'm just going to look here and see. These are, again, this is my personal list. So just looking at cards that I've been considering. Deadeye is really the one that I think is most important. Sigil of Solace is a great way to gain 3 life and load. Razor Reflex, I thought it'd be fun just to maybe add just one because the way that this list works is there's enough blues that you can often, you play a pump, you pitch to flip a card up, give it a name counter, then maybe it's one resource to send that card. And so you've got this infecting shot coming in for 8, uh, no go again, and they block it out perfectly. I thought it'd be fun maybe to just try Razor Reflex. Um, I don't know if you'd have a good follow-up. If you do have a zero cost arrow there, you can maybe play this, load the zero cost arrow, send the zero cost arrow. It's unlikely. Haven't tested it, so it stays in the sideboard. But the real ones here, I'm gonna say, look, Van Brace of Determination. I don't think you need it if you run Dreadbore, if you run the traps into Enigma. Just take out the reaction traps, but all of their weapons are going to have power greater than their base. They're all going to have go again. So you should be fine there. I don't think you need Van Brace. And I would rather have the get out of jail free card of loading a Stone Rain or some other card into my arsenal with a aim counter. Just I prefer that over Van Brace. Perch, haven't really done testing, but we don't run a lot of cards like Bolt and Shot or other card. Like, I just don't see this being a card that we really need for anything other than the 2 block. So I'd rather just stick with Snaps for now. Then Deadeye. Deadeye is a really, really cool card that I love, but it is a bit it is awkward, right? Like, I said, line it up is great because it flips it up and it gives it that aim counter, but Deadeye doesn't. So you can't do the old, like, I'm going to pitch a blue, I'll play Deadeye, I'll load Murky Water, and I'm going to send Murky Water for, 11 dominate. No, it's just going to be 9. It's going to be 9. It's not going to have this on hit. It'll have Murky Waters on hit. But what you really want is 11 dominate on hit, discard a card. I found that Deadeye was just not the most reliable for that. I would sooner put in another Lace with Frailty myself. But that's the list, guys. That's what I'm running. And it's a lot of fun. I've had good results with it. I'm by no means saying this is the best Riptide list or this is the way to run it moving forward. I'm not saying that this is like an extremely great meta deck, but if you're looking to counter specifically the hunted heroes, I highly recommend giving this list a shot. It's what I'm going to be playing when the hunted comes out, and hopefully we'll get some more traps that we can possibly use in Riptide, although it seems like they'll likely just be assassin traps. So let's hope for set 16 we get, what, set 16, I want it to be a jungle set with brutes and trap rangers, specifically trap rangers, and a shaman. I don't want a necromancer. I want a shaman. That's what I want. If you try this list, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you don't try this list and you just think it's, stupid, don't tell me in the comments. I don't want to hear that. I'm not going to pretend like I care that much about your comments. Don't be mean to me. Okay. But if you want to be nice to me, you can give us a like, you can subscribe, you can join the Discord, and that's all for this video. So thank you guys very much. Link will be in the description below. Again, personal deck, so I'm going to be changing it quite a bit, but you've seen the cards, you know the cards. Now go play the cards. All right. Bye, everyone.